Yeah. So yeah, here's what you look like.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
Yeah. And then you can just look at me as if we're having a conversation because that's pretty much what it is.
Okay.
And so just Lloyd Alcorn, correct?
My name's Lloyd Alcorn.
Yes, sir. And then we'll get a little personal with just a couple things, but how old are you?
I'm 61 years old.
Wow.
61.
So I mean, just to kind of have this transformation at 61, probably started when you were maybe 59ish or so. I guess. I mean, what is this? Did you ever think you would be doing what you're doing at the age of 61?
Well, I would say I might have had aspirations, but not pragmatic or realistic. I probably about in 2020 or so was probably my kind of peak weight, which I was right at a 50 BMI. So that puts me at real high weight numbers, 340 maybe, close to. I tried very, very hard to kind of lose a lot of weight, but it was at my 60th birthday that I really got disciplined about it. I had kind of lost some weight, so I started from a level. I think my doctor had me at a 46 BMI at that point. And over the past 14 months, I've lost an extraordinary amount of weight. Going back to that 2020 date, it does exceed 140 pounds that I've lost. And one of the main ways that I did it was obviously diet, discipline, but I got on my bicycle and began doing that minimum 6 days a week. And I'd start off, if I rode 8 miles, that was a hard workout, at 300 pounds. But as the year progressed, I'd do 16 miles and then I'd do 25. And I remember vividly kind of early in the winter, hitting my 40-mile ride for the first time, and I'm doing this very slow. I am like a slow bike rider, but once I hit kind of 40 miles and could do it for 4 hours or whatever, I started thinking, I wonder if I could ever do something like a triathlon or whatever. And it was at my 61st birthday that I said, I think I've lost enough weight. My doctors are all supportive of what I'm doing, and so I just took the plunge and signed up for the TriWaco Sprint, and this is my first foray into the triathlon world.
Wow. So, and you've never done any sort of race organized like this. Have you ever done anything like this before?
Well, in the 1970s and 1980s, I did. I think the last organized race I did was American Heart Association run in New York City before I even met my wife. And I just started a career in New York City. I was young, in my 20s. I didn't train for it or anything like that, but if I remember, I think I ran a 10K. And I wasn't even at that stage, even though I wasn't even able to run it. It was a run walk for me, but other than that, no, I've never done anything like this at all.
So, I mean, it takes a lot of courage to not only do what you've done, but just, to jump in and say, I'm going to do a TriWaco, and remind me the stages of each, the 3 ones. What are you getting into tomorrow exactly?
So tomorrow, a little bit of a modification because of some of the rain, but on the swim, we are jumping into the river over by the Doris Miller YMCA, swimming a roughly 500 meters across over to the park in Waco, right at Heritage. I think that's not Heritage Square, but right at the suspension bridge where it lets off. And that's kind of what they call the transition zone. So you come out of the river, you swim across the river, roughly 500 meters, come out, transition, get on your bike. In the sprint, I'll do a 16-mile bike ride, which is 2 loops up and down MLK Road. Then you go transition again, change shoes, put on your running shoes, and we run up the river towards Cameron Park. For me, in the sprint level, I'll be doing a 3.5 mile run. So I think the people who are expert and well conditioned at this will kind of do things in about an hour. I'm hoping to break 2 hours. I believe confidently I can probably break 2 hours and 15 minutes. I invested in a new but used bike for me, and so that I think I might have bought about 15 minutes just changing bikes. So.
Yeah. Well, I also want to ask me, how noticeable of a difference I'm sure that you feel now versus you did, year and a half or so ago. I mean, how do you feel when you wake up every day now?
Well, I mean, waking up and getting out of bed and rising is significantly easier. I'm half the man I used to be, and I'm therefore lifting half the weight. It feels good. It's a very kind of cathartic, reflective thing to kind of be at an age, as a very young person. I was athletic and pretty competitive, and it's all different now. I was thinking, as a younger person, if I didn't win, I would have been upset. And now I'm going into this, the opportunity to participate, having kind of the health to be able to participate. My genuine goal is just to finish and be, kind of get the participation medal.
Yeah.
So, not that I'm doing it for the medal, but for my own personal glory, if you will.
Absolutely. And I know you kind of touched on it when you kind of just explained a little bit, but what was it that switched for you? Was it stepping on the scale and seeing that, or seeing what was it that would just say, I'm gonna continue and I'm not looking back?
Well, so I never thought of myself as like an overweight, obese person. As a young person, I grew up healthy and athletic and all of that stuff. But the nature of my life and work and just a series of bad decisions, day in and day out, kind of led to, I would tell people, I'm nothing more, a year ago, I'm nothing more than a result of 3 to 5 pounds a year. But after 40 years, that's a lot of weight. And that's where I was. So it was my family, my personal desire to live, my personal desire to be active, if you will, and not relegated to assistants and wheelchairs and things of that nature. And something about my 60th birthday and the conversations with my doctors, it clicked. Now, in full disclosure, I did at that time start taking the GLP-1 drugs, which are the Nuvo weight loss drugs, and they worked for me. And they didn't change my appetite, they didn't change how I felt, they didn't change my knowledge of what's right and what's wrong. The one thing they did for me personally was every day, every meal, I made the right decision. And that was the difference. And it was an immediate effect. And so there were a lot of combining factors that got me kind of to today relative to where I was, 18 months ago. But all of those things combined, just it was in my 60th birthday. Basically, I see a general practitioner and also a cardiologist. At the weight, I had very serious blood pressure issues. In fact, blood pressure issues that would scare my doctors. Like even I just show up, I'm fine, and whatever. But, in any case, I think it was more my cardiologist who said, you know, you're 60, you're terribly overweight, and you're extremely lucky because nothing horrible has happened to you yet. But over the next 5-10 years, that's just not going to be the case. And the one thing that he mentioned, he said, you are starting to see some degradation in your kidney function, and you just don't live a good life with bad kidneys. And all of those things, all of those things combined, it clicked, and from that point forward, I've been on a personal mission.
Well, what's been the most challenging thing in the last 18 months? Has there been a time where you wanted to quit or maybe not go with this, or were you pretty determined? And what has been the hardest thing about this?
Well, I'm self-employed, run small businesses. There's and kind of one of the excuses was, when I was in New York, I was a busy Wall Street guy, and I was full of excuses as why not to take good care of myself. And so the hardest part was is saying, I've got to, this, as much as I love my wife and my family and all of those things, there's a little bit of, I've got to take a couple hours for me. And it has not been my historic nature to be so self-focused, self-centered, self-absorbed, whatever you want to call it. But there's a genuine, I gotta get out, I gotta do this. And, if you're doing it 6 days a week, that means it's the only day I take off is Sunday. And, I don't get up at 6 o'clock every morning and get all my workout stuff done before 8 o'clock. So I have to make sure that if I take off at 11 to 1, and so it's largely balancing the work life for me. But there was never a real mental barrier that I wasn't able to conquer. And I don't know if that's the way those GLP-1s work, but I'm telling you, it was a light switch. It was off on for me on really my 60th birthday.
Wow.
So.
And then, are you confident? I mean, I know you kind of said you're confident, but are you nervous about the TriWaco tomorrow, or how are you just feeling approaching it?
I've thought about this a little bit, just because I feel a little bit like a young adolescent kid about to play his first football game or his first baseball game. So I've been doing this. I mean, I started my competitive athletic life in Dallas-Fort Worth area in a baseball league called Mighty Eights because we were 8 years old. So that's the age that sticks out to me. But there's a anticipation, a nervousness. I've never done it. It's a little bit, the swim's a little bit intimidating because this isn't a pool swim where you go back and forth and you can stop at the end and grab the edge of the pool. When you're 500 meters, you're out in the middle. There's no touching the bottom. And I was explaining to my wife, the difference is I can stop and rest, but I'm dog paddling and to breathe, and it's just as exerting as actually swimming. So, anyway, so yes, I'm nervous. There's a little bit of there's a surprising amount of anxiety, even kind of being at this age, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Regardless, I know you said your goal was to finish the race, which I know you will. But what else are you going to just take away from this entire experience, these 18 months, and then you're getting to see all of the work you've put in kind of, come to life a little bit tomorrow. So how are you going to just walk away from that after you finish tomorrow?
Well, how will I walk? I mean, I will be proud. It's not impossible that I might be a little bit emotional, just because it's a hurdle. It's an achievement. It's a finish line, if you will. But the truth is, I've been doing this amount of triathlon workouts every Saturday for the past 4 Saturdays, so I have a reasonable degree of confidence of completing, and I already kind of have my workout methods for if I do okay. My next goal is to catch up with some of my similarly aged friends and do the Olympic level, which is an advancement, and so I'm hopeful, and pretty sure I'll feel very thrilled.
Absolutely. And then last question for you.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of just, let's say somebody today is in the same position you were on your 60th birthday, seems, maybe a really tough place to get out of. What advice would you give them, and how would you encourage them to, say, hey, look at me, you can do what I've done? There are a couple of kind of fundamental things you need to do, in my opinion. One, see your doctor. 2, don't ignore the problem. Being obese, being overweight is a problem. It is nothing other than a problem. And and so you tackle it. You have to confront it. You don't ignore it. Don't make excuses. Don't say, well, for 40 years, I said I'm going to deal with that next week, and next week became next month, and next month became next year, and next year became next decade, and so look at yourself in the mirror, address it, and don't feel embarrassed about any of it. There was certainly a lot of kind of undertone negativity about being on the GLP-1s and such, and I don't know if it's because they're new or weight loss fads have been going on for decades and decades. But I'm going to throw my sister under the bus here a little bit, who, I'm really the only one in my family that developed weight problems. My sister doesn't have any. And but she asked me, she said, so you're going to take this drug, you're going to lose all this weight, and then what are you going to do? You just going to put all the weight back on? I mean, what's the plan? And I said, honestly, that's a little bit like asking me, I would go to the doctor and my top blood pressure number would hit 250. I'd walk out of the doctor with blood pressures of 250 over 190. I mean, I'm talking real blood pressure issues. And so I said to her, it's a little bit like saying, well, I'm going to take all this medicine and lower my blood pressure, and then what am I going to do? It's like, I'm going to keep doing what I have to do to keep myself in a state that at least me and my doctors think are the healthiest state I can be in. So you just take it day by day from this point forward, and don't ignore the problem. Absolutely. Anything else that you think we didn't talk about or touch on?
No, I'm really grateful to, the people who do things like this. It can be, I'm sure, a thankless effort. But it means something, particularly to people like me who've kind of really been on a journey, a lot of it very isolated on my own. I still ride my bike all by myself. But it's nice to be in a community of people who are doing this and just joyful about the event.
Yes, sir.
So,
Absolutely.
okay.
Thanks so much. Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, you answered all my questions in
Okay.
kind of your first couple, so I mean,
Good. Okay.
you're
No, it was
a
good.
pro interview. So.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad. As long as you think it came out okay. And,
Yes, sir.
And
yeah.